exponents. Okay, this should be a W right here. It just got cut off. So it should say when you first learned multiplication, you probably represented multiplication by using what's called repeated addition in groups. So basic exponent operations could be represented by repeated multiplication. Meaning it is the same number being multiplied over and over and over again. So instead of writing that number multiple times, you write it using exponents because A, it takes up less space, B, it confines it down. So if we look right here, this is what an exponent is. Okay? N is my exponent. N is a variable that represents any number that it wants to be. Okay? Any number. I could put a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in that spot. I could put a 0 there. We could have negatives there. We could have any number in that spot. Now, we are only going to work with positive whole numbers, but eventually, as you get older, other numbers will come into play in that spot. Understood? Understood. B is what we call the base. So B is that base. This means that B, your base, is multiplied by itself n times. So if we look over here to the side, I have 4 to the third power. 4 to the third power means 4 times 4 times 4. You are taking the base and you are multiplying it by itself 3 times. So 4 multiplied by itself 3 times, which is why we see 3 4s. Does that make sense, everyone? And then you multiply them together. So what is 4 times 4, everyone? So then I have 16, and I multiply that 16 by 4, and that is how they got 64 as their answer. Okay, it's not like you add it together. It's not 4 times 4 is 8, and then add 4. Does that make sense, guys? Yeah. Okay, so then here, I've got 1 to the 5th power. That means the base is 1, and I multiply it by itself 5 times. So I have 5 1s multiplied together. So what is 1 times 1, everyone?
1.
And 1 times 1?
1.
And 1 times 1?
1.
And 1 times 1?
1.
So what's my answer?
1.
So 1 to the 5th power is 1. It's not 1 times 5. It's 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1.
So 1 to the 100th power is just 1.
So then I have 3 squared. What does 3 squared mean? What am I multiplying together, everyone?
3.
So I have 3 times 3. My base is 3. I multiply it by itself 2 times. So it's 3 times 3. And 3 times 3 is?
9.
So 3 squared is 9. Yes, Hattie? We will no longer use x's anymore. So no x's anymore because x's are now variables. So we can't use x's because that'll confuse us with variables. So we use dots as a multiplication symbol. We use numbers inside parentheses as multiplication symbols. And eventually you'll see where like a number next to a variable means multiplication, or 2 variables next to each other mean multiplication. So multiplication is one of those tricky ones. So no more x's. There's a bunch of other things that mean to multiply. Good question. Yes, Connor? Yes. So yep, every single number is always to the power of 1. That's one of those invisible math rules. So if you guys look at my back bulletin board, and it's the second green one down, the second line down, it says every number has an exponent of 1. So 7 equals 7 to the first power. That 1 is always there, but you don't ever see it, which is why it's invisible. Does that make sense, everyone? Okay, so if we go right here, see if I can get it to say, okay, there we go. It says, when we say an exponent out loud, we call a number with a power of 2 squared, meaning this 3 to the power of 2 that we had right here, we say 3 squared. That's the same thing as saying 3 to the power of 2, but we just say 3 squared. And then we call it to the power of 3. If you see it to the power of 3, that's cubed. So 4 to the third power, that's the same thing as saying 4 cubed. So if you hear or see any of those things, they mean cubed is 3, squared is 2. Just to give you a little heads up. Questions so far? All right, let's try it now. So if we go down to this bottom part, it says to simplify each expression. That means I want you to solve your exponents. So I have 2 to the 5th power. What does that mean?
You multiply 2 5 times.
I multiply 2 5 times. So everyone, you're going to write down 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And then you're going to multiply, guys. Now, the beauty of multiplication is it can be done in any order. Okay? I can do 2 times 2. What's 2 times 2?
4.
And then I can take that 4 and multiply it by the 2, and I could keep going that way. Or I could do this and do 2 times 2.
4.
What's 2 times 2?
4.
Then I could just do this 4 times 4, which is 16. And then I can take the 16 and multiply it by the last 2.
32.
So 2 to the 5th power is 32. You just need to be really careful with your math. You can multiply in any order you want. It does not matter the order you multiply in, as long as you multiply 2 by itself 5 times. Okay, everyone do number 2 for me. It says 5 to the 3rd power. What's that mean?
Multiply 5
Just tell me what it means. What am I multiplying together? So everyone do that for me. 5 times 5 times 5. Do that math, please, and thank you. Okay, guys, what is 5 times 5?
25.
What, everyone?
25.
So then you should be doing 25 times 5, and 25 times 5 is? So you should have told me that it is 125. 5 cubed is 125. Does that make sense? Questions so far? Okay, number 3. 10 to the 3rd. Tell me how to write that out. What does 10 to the 3rd mean?
10 times 10 times 10.
So we should all be writing 10 times 10 times 10. What's that answer, everyone?
1,000.
What is it?
1,000.
How could I do that without actually doing the multiplying? And how could I do that without having to do 10 times 10 is 100, and then 100 times 10 is 1,000? How could I do that, Cooper?
So you see it's 10, so you keep the ones, but you wouldn't have to put any other ones. But then if it's 3 cubed, then there's 3 zeros after every 10. So you add 3 zeros after 1.
Excellent. So as Cooper stated, it's all 10, so I keep 1, 1. And then there is the number 3 there, so there are 3 zeros, so I need 3 zeros in my answer. Does that make sense, everyone? Sam and Joe, I suggest you stop talking or I will split you two up. Okay, so that is one of these key things over here. It says down below the powers of 10 will only contain ones and zeros. So everyone skip number 4 and go to number 5 for me. Do number 5 based on that rule. Don't need to write out 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. Just tell me what the answer is. Write it down. Make sure you put a comma in so you're able to actually read the answer. What's my answer, everyone?
100,000.
Because how many zeros should I have? The number, your exponent is 5, which means I need 5 zeros in my answer. Does that make sense? Connor? Yep. Absolutely. That's the beauty of it. All right, everyone do number 6 based on that same principle. That's why we learn that, because then when you get numbers with like to the 13th power, you don't have to do all that math. We like as many shortcuts as we can possibly get, right guys?
Yes.
So how many zeros do we end up with, you guys? 13. So you get this extremely long number. Need 3 more. 13. There we go. So as long as you have 13 zeros, you got it. Any questions when it's the power of 10? Okay, so what did we talk about with number 4? We already mentioned this one. If it's 12 to the first power, my answer is just, which is this middle dot right here. Any number to the power, to the first power, is itself. So any number that you see to the first power, power of 1, is always just itself. Now this number up here, or this one up here, I'm going to tell you what it is, but you will not see it on any quiz. You will not see it on any homework assignment. It'll be something you will do when you guys get to pre-algebra, which I believe is 8th grade. Got it? So it's not something you got to worry about this year. Understood? So it's any number to the 0 power is 1. Meaning that if we see 4 to the 0, the answer is 1. And like I said, I'm not going to go over it because it's not something you need to know this year. Got it? But that's what it is. I'm not going over it. Understood? Questions? Jake?
On the very top where it says this means being led by blank and iron, I didn't get that.
It's itself.
Itself. Other questions? All right, let's take out a dry erase marker and eraser. So what if I just told you this? I want you to write using exponents. If I say write using exponents, does that say anything about solving? No. So if I give you this example, if I give you that right there, and I tell you to write using exponents, do I want you to solve that? No, I want you to just write it using exponents. So that means I want you to write it like these examples when it says 4 to the third, 1 to the fifth, 3 to the second. I want you to write it that way using exponents. So what would my base be, everyone? 3, because that is the number that we see. The number we are multiplying. My base is 3. Then I need my exponent. My exponent is the number of times that the 3 appears. So how many 3s do you see?
7.
So my exponent is, so my answer is just 3 to the 7th. If I don't want you to solve, don't solve. Don't do more work than you have to. Understood? All right. Do this one for me now. Write that one using exponents for me. Jake, what'd you get?
Me?
Yep.
4 to the power of 4.
Perfect. 4 to the power of 4, 4 to the 4th power. Okay, do this one for me. What'd you get? 6 to the power of 5, 6 to the 5th power. All right. I just want to make sure you guys knew how to do that. Does that make sense on how to write it? All right, now I'm going to ask you to solve. So now you guys can solve. Let's do 3 to the 4th power. 3 to the 4th power. Everyone solve that one for me.